They could hardly breathe all the time, for years and years from being gassed. God, I mean, Margot is so upset by war. She's just absolutely, she's written letters, she's still writing to her congressman and to anybody telling them how stupid it is.
What do you think about what's happening right now in current affairs, if you had to make a wish?
Gord, at this point, I've, at my age and being at the end of the tether and all the things I've seen and all that, I just realized that there isn't much I can do about all that, and if I can have a decent day, like sitting here talking to you and reminiscing a little and whatnot, that's kind of fun, telling the old story. This whole world is still a mystery. We don't really know. We don't know why we're here. Stephen Hawking, smartest man in the universe, gave up. He said, why? Why are we here?
You said there is no God. Is that what you just said recently?
Well, he got tired of, and I think the rationale for that was that there's so many people exploiting people through religion, fleecing them and getting them to do all kinds of things that, which was the something that there was a boogeyman watching them. That I think did him a big service. But I asked the question why 3 times. I came up with a big question mark. And so occurs to me that when this old man's light goes out, then in his place there'll be a question mark.
Well, let me just stop here for a second. Off with, if you had any advice to give your son on teaching, as far as accomplishing things in a school system, from your experience working 26 years in a department, considering I'm a head of a department too, what are some of the things that maybe you could share with me that were some goals that kind of helped you along, or experiences?
Well, something I discovered somewhere along the line. I actually wanted to be a good teacher. I mean, that's what I was going to do. And so we would talk about it a lot with my friends, and during grad school, when we knew we were going to go into teaching, we tried to figure out how should we do it, what attitudes. The Bauhaus had come along with their experimental media and that sort of thing, and so they had kind of revolutionized or broken the back of Greco-Roman art or realistic art of the Renaissance, light and shade and photographic, that sort of thing. And so we were looking for imagery, looking for new ways to do things, and so we were concerned about how we should teach, what we should teach. And we never did come up with anything particularly, but we certainly didn't think it was necessary to do it like it had been done. However, I found out that some of those tools, like perspective and light and shade and whatnot, came in real handy. I mean, when I wanted to play around with imagery, I could do it convincingly. And so I think in that sense, I like the idea of giving them some practical tools, so that if they chose to do this, they had the tool to do it with. And also I try to encourage them to experiment a lot, so taking a lot of chances and that. So the whole, what it turned out is I didn't plan on it being that way, but it turned out that the way I was doing it, that I was giving them some things that really worked, and giving them the chance to play around and not worry about whether it worked or not. And I used to tell them, there's nothing you can do in a watercolor that they can put you in jail for.
Yeah.
So live it up. So watercolor is an adventure. Every one you do is you're going to be things that happen that there's nothing you can do about it. It's the beauty of the medium. But anyway, I think as a teacher, if you establish a rapport with your students and can get them interested in learning, on their own. And I used to say, if they're laughing, they're learning. And there was something to that, that humor is a marvelous tool for teaching, because it breaks the ice and it closes the distance between you and them. And that's very important. And so if you manage to get them to want to learn, you've done it. Whatever it takes. I mean, like, you have, and that has to be done on pretty much on a one-on-one basis. I figured that out. You couldn't just get in front of some people and give them a lot of crap and then expand and then test them by wanting feedback of the same thing. No, that's not teaching. Teaching is essentially opening doors for them, showing them the ways to go. I mean, if you're in literature, you keep bringing the best books, the experimental books, whatever, to their attention so they can make value judgments. So they have to learn to make judgments on their own. So you have to leave. You don't want a feedback kind of situation where I told you this, I want you to tell me what I told you, and that's a no-no.
Right.
So it's just a matter of getting the more one-on-one you can get with them, and the more interesting things you can bring to their attention, to have them want to learn more, then your job is done then, because once they want to learn and they have the fun of learning and doing things, experimenting, and that, once they get
Did
there.
you ever show like slideshows of
Oh.
just people that you were inspired by, whether it was the Picassos or
I
the
had-
Dalis? You
I
ever
mean,
do things like that?
Oh, yeah, I had slides. I like to lecture behind a slide lecture.
Okay.
I mean, just to take off on those things. And when I taught art history, instead of having them just memorize who painted what when, I had them sketch the slides, just make value sketches and pattern sketches. Then we'd talk about those things, the technical aspects, I mean, and the aesthetic things, you know, the rhythms that an artist would, you would just dissect a painting in terms of, not just in terms of its historical stuff, but how it was done and why it was better than another one, and make value judgments. So art is a different world because it's all comparison. And
How
the
do you-
more you see, and like the slides are absolutely necessary because they can't get them to the museums, you know.
Let me ask you, because like, you know, when I was going through a lot of teacher training, they would, in a lesson plan, we would look up, you know, what the end result was and how I was going to assess student learning. And I learned the word rubric, where if I had 5 things that they were trying to accomplish, that was my rubric, right? Did you, if I asked you to come up with some typographic effect, did you try that in your layout? Did you incorporate typography? Okay, step 1, right? Did you put a tagline or some information about the product if we're doing a product ad? So there was the rubric, right? The checklist. Did you have that type of assessment when you were assessing and grading? Because you probably had to submit grades, right?
Well, it was all a matter of comparison. I mean, the more I saw, and you know, as time went on, I saw more and more and more, and it just naturally made a value judgment. If I've got 30 students paintings sitting out in front of me, there's going to be 3 or 4 of them I like.
Right, but if somebody said, "Hey Armstrong, why'd you give me a B on this? What was your comeback?"
Well, I would try to explain why it wasn't as good as somebody who got an A.
Right, but you see what I'm getting at with my kids, I have to use this rubric just to kind of have something to back me up. I'm
Yeah.
saying, hey, there's the list, boom, boom, boom. Okay, 5 points for each one, 25-point project. In my experience with the high schoolers, that was my safety net. On the college level, didn't it need that so much? That type of like, here's the 5 things I was looking for. Either you did them or you didn't do them.
Well, this was a little more, you know, for the semester's work.
You didn't have like 3 or 4 grading Like, you have to submit a grade 3 or 4 times during the semester? Because we used to we have to do that. Like quarterly grades, no?
I can't quite remember whether I did or didn't.
Did you have like a group critique at the end?
Yeah, that was.
That's where you really gave them the
that's where
grades?
I nailed them.
Did you?
But I usually had 2 or 3 critiques during the semester.
Okay, and then at that point, did you have to mark down what their grades were
Yeah,
at that
I would
point?
put a grade down on
Okay.
them. Seems to me like we did have to submit mid-semester grades.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, I'm just curious because,
Well,
that's
it's
part of
changed, it was different with different classes.
Mhm.
If it was a life drawing class, well, shit, all they do is just stand there and draw every day, and not very cerebral, it's just pure making the hand do it. And that would usually based on improvement. I mean, their grade was, I could tell, they had this 100 drawings you go through. You can tell the ones that were getting better and the ones that are still looking like shit.
Take a break here for a second. Come see your papa? Come see your papa? It's okay. This is the wiggly Jasmine. Doesn't want to stick around very much.
Move around.
Uh-oh.
Climb up on it and jump off of it. What she got, the dark spot?
That's a little birthmark.
Birthmark?
All right. When you guys were first dating, tell me a couple little stories.
What stories?
About Jaylene. She'll probably find it interesting.
Well, Jaylene, mother and father divorced. You knew that.
Yeah, he was kind of a
He was,
gambler.
well, I don't know what all
Drunk
he
or
did, but
whatever he was
his
screwing
main
around.
thing was he took care of cemeteries.
Yeah, I know.
But Jaylene she would worked at the Bell Telephone Company till late at night, and I'd go pick her up down there.
That's when you met her? She was at
Yeah,
Bradley
she-
University? Or?
yeah, she was at Bradley, and she was working as a telephone operator.
How did you first meet her, you think?
Well, she was just, everybody, I don't know.
We just bumped into each other and
Yeah,
started
sort of that. Well, she was kind of pretty, and she always was a flock of guys following her around.
Oh, yeah.
I had one friend who was really, really smitten with Jaylene.
Who was that? Do you remember?
Yeah, his name is Walt Anderson. He's still around. He was one of the people he was my best man, actually.
Oh, God. That's so awkward.
So I just took her.
Oh, Lord. Well, what kind of things you guys go out and do on dates? What did you pick her up in a car? What kind of car did you have? Huh?
We did all the things we weren't supposed to do.
Well, I mean, like, did you have a car? At
Yeah,
that
I had
time?
a
What kind of
car.
car did you have?
I had an old beat-up Chevrolet that my brother had left me, and I was in pretty good shape when I got out, but I banged it up so many times it was all beat to shit.
Well, what do you do when how old are you, 20
We
something?
go to, well, your mother loved to dance. We
Okay.
went to every dance band that came through Peoria, and there was one about every month.
She liked to dance, huh? Did you like to
yeah,
dance?
Then she ended up, didn't she taught dance at
Arthur Murray's, I
Arthur
think,
Murray,
yeah.
and she loved to dance.
Did you like to dance?
Oh, yeah, I could.
What kind
I'll
of dances did you, do you remember the names of the dances? Jitterbug?
That was
Well, who were some of the
yeah.
musics that you danced to?
Oh, everybody met, well, let's see, who all came through.
Was this swing?
Yeah, it was Swinger.
Like bassy? And who are the?
Well, Louis Armstrong came through one time with Jack Teagarden and Daddy Earl Hines, and they played. We didn't dance that night because it snowed and not many people showed up,
Tell me
so
about
they
that.
just had a jam session. We all sat on the floor
And
instead of dancing.
Mom was with you then?
Yeah.
On that one?
Yeah.
Wow, that was in what, Peoria? That would have been in like the sometime in the 50s, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's when the big band era was
Oh,
happening?
yeah, I think we had Vaughn Monroe and people like that, and I think what's his name? Benny Goodman.
Oh, okay, yeah, he's a big swing.
Yeah, big swing here.
That's cool.
Then we would go to Chicago occasionally if we could get there. And there's a place called the Gate of Horn, which had some of the best. Odetta was one of the big ones. She was a black singer, and she and Ella Fitzgerald pretty much defined it. So your mother was an aficionado, and we got involved in the movement real heavy. And so we spent much time in black community as we did in the white, or more actually, because we got involved in setting up the NAACP chapter in Peoria.
Is that when you met
Wasn't
Gene?
such a one?
Is that when you met Gene
Yeah,
Flowers?
Gene was part of it, so we break, and then your mother and I built a house. I got a GI loan and built a track house out along the park called Parkside Lane. There was about 30 or 40 houses on a lane that went back into the park. It was a nice area out north of town. And so we entertained a lot out there. Then we later sold it to my parents and went off to Dallas. Figured I'd.
Did you live in Dallas with her for a while?
Yeah, it was a boom town, and that's where everything was happening, a lot of activity, and so we went to Dallas, and I just took my little portfolio and started walking into places. And finally an old guy hired me, John Malone. He was probably the best illustrator in Dallas. He hired me for some reason, and I worked with him for a year and did some, did I show you those branded posters
Yeah,
over there?
I think I have some of those.
Well, those are the originals there.
Yeah.
Anyway, I remember when, after your mother and I were in Burma, I wrote John a letter, and I got an answer back. He said, "I knew you'd go far, but not quite so far."
To Burma.
Yeah, halfway around the world. You know, John and I had a good time. He taught me a lot.
Well, and then you got up to Wisconsin, but tell me a little bit of Burma's always kind of fun to hear about. What was your first impression when you got off the plane over there?
They took us to, it was late at night, and they took us to a place called the Kambaza Palace, and it had been one of the viceroys that lived in there. It was a huge, beautiful building. Well, I guess the thing was beautiful, had a roof on it. But they didn't believe in screens. And so I woke up. We got in late at night, and we just went right to the room and went to sleep, and I woke up and the damn birds were flying through the room.
Oh my God.
And I looked up, and there were lizards on the ceiling.
Oh my God.
And geckos, people left them. They didn't do anything to them because they ate mosquitoes and flies, so they were a good thing to have around.
Yeah.
So there was always 5 or 6 lizards crawling around in your ceiling.
It's like camping.
I remember one night one of them fell into the bed, and they had a natural protective thing. They would throw the tail,
Yeah.
and the tail would go off by itself, and what was left went off. It's pretty weird. You wake up in the middle of the night and this goddamn thing breaking up in your bed and going in 3 directions. I mean, we had a lot of adjustment problems.
Oh my God. What was the food like? Did you have some real authentic food right away?
Well, food was horrible. They were the world's worst cooks.
Did they have anything good to drink over there?
Oh, well, now here was we had embassy privileges, the American embassy. So they had a beautiful store, and they imported stuff from Australia, Australian beef, for example. We got fresh beef. It would have been frozen, but we got booze, and we didn't pay any taxes. It was no taxes. Like I could get black and white scotch for $2 a bottle, Mum champagne, the best. That I think I paid $1.50 for that. So we had plenty of booze, and so these young Fulbright people that we got to know, these Israelis, we were together every weekend because I had practically had free booze.
Mm. They
So
liked
it was a strange experience. I don't know where you knew it or not, but that was the biggest Ford grant given that year
Yeah.
in America.
什么没有啦？
5 of us had to spend $1 million in a year.
So was there any plan? How many people were kind
Well,
of
we were supposed to develop a publishing house with the emphasis on literature for the new literate. So the Buddhists ran schools more or less and taught people to read more or less at some level, and it wasn't always at the same age. It's like there were people learning to read when they were 30 years old or 40 years old even, that they were referred to as the new literate, someone who just became literate regardless of age. So communicating with them was a very difficult thing. We finally ended up realizing that the best way to communicate elementary stuff was with the comic book. So I was teaching them how to do comic books, and we had comic books on leprosy and comic books on syphilis and